The Besavior is the hottest new third-party controller for the PlayStation 5 on the market right now, but is it worth the money and should you consider buying it? We're gonna find out. I was lucky enough to get a pre-release version of the Besavior controller from the B-Loader team. Yes, the folks that brought you such products as the B-Loader Pro or the regular B-Loader, well, they brought a new product. This is the Besavior. It is, for all intents and purposes, probably one of the best back button controller mods that you can get for the PlayStation 5 when you are not looking at a first-party controller. Now, before I go too far into this video, we need to talk about what a first-party controller is and what a third-party controller is. A first-party controller is a Sony PlayStation controller. It starts as a PlayStation controller, and through its entire life, it is a PlayStation controller. The reason why I call something like this a third-party controller is because this started life as a PlayStation controller. The people at B-Loader modified a factory PlayStation 5 controller to function differently than what Sony intended it to. They basically are souping it up. They're making it better. If you use the analogy of a car, they went and bought a Ford Mustang and they slapped a turbocharger on it and they put a different graphics kit on it and I don't know, maybe they turned it into a convertible when it wasn't a convertible, but it is still a Ford Mustang. It's just been modified. So this Besavior is still a PlayStation controller. It's been modified. So it has now become a third-party controller. Other third-party controllers would include brands such as Scuff. It would include AIM. It would include Battle Beaver. Basically, all of them start with PlayStation 5 components. They modify them to do what they want it to do, and then they sell you that controller. And that's partly why the costs are so high for a lot of these controllers, because they have to buy the PlayStation controller first and then mod it and then sell it to you. Before we get too far into this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel down below. If you've seen some of our content already and have not subscribed, we want you to join our community. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's get back to the video. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about some of the features about this controller. I've had it for about a week. I've been using it for about a week. I finally have a chance to give you my honest, hands-on impression. Now, what have I compared this to? Well, I've owned a Scuff controller, I've owned a Battle Beaver, I've owned an AIM controller, and my daily driver is this, which is again, a factory PlayStation 5 controller that has had an extreme rate Rise 2.0 kit. So this is just the 2 button, it's not the 4 button. And that's mostly because I only really need 2 back buttons. It also has this little modified wing on there, which allows me to hold the controller and trigger this button with my ring finger. I've also modified this controller with clicky triggers. So I've removed the adaptive triggers. I made it so that they just have short throw triggers, and I've modified it to have adjustable height thumbsticks. As you can see, this one is higher than this one. Now, I have no complaints about this controller. I've been using this one for about a year. I built it in a different video on this YouTube channel. So if you want to see how I built it, you can see that video. And if you want to build yourself, you can. Talking about this controller, I have to say that the Besavior is the best implementation of back buttons that I have seen on any PlayStation 5 controller yet. So these buttons, they're right where your fingers would be with normal grip, so you don't have to modify how you hold the controller. The buttons are just right where you want them to be. Also, the OLED screen on here makes remapping and configuring this controller dead easy. It is super simple, and it has memory positions for 4 different configurations. So you can set up the configuration for each game that you're playing, as long as you're only playing 4 games kind of at the same time. Otherwise, you got to overwrite a different configuration. So it gives you all of those functions. So I can say, as a back button modded controller, this is the best bang for the buck you can get. The Besavior team have listed the price for this at $159.99 US. Now, I know that's going to sound like a lot, but Consider the fact that they're including the back button mod. It's already been installed. When you compare that to the SCUF base controller, which adds the 4 back buttons and the memory, they want $199 US. So this is cheaper than that, and it gives you all the same functionality, but it also gives you extra functionality. The thing that we're not talking about is the B-Loader Pro, which allows you to connect any one of these controllers to your PlayStation 5 through remote play, is actually built into the back button on here. So there's this USB port in the front, which allows you to do a wired connection to any one of these controllers, but it also has a built-in Bluetooth, which allows you to connect wirelessly to any one of these controllers. So if you prefer an Xbox controller, you could get this controller and use it as the gateway to allow you to connect your Xbox controller for all of your PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 games, including games that block devices like the Corona ZEN out of being used for those games. So this truly unlocks the ability to use whatever controller you want on your PlayStation 5. Now I understand, it's a little bit expensive for adding the option to use a different controller, but consider this, it'll never wear out. If you don't use this controller, it'll always work, and you can just use your favorite controller all the time and you're good to go. So there's that extra functionality as well. Now, this does have a couple downsides, and I'm gonna address those now. I'm gonna talk about why I think it's a downside, and then I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do to fix that. So there's two things. The biggest thing for me is I've gotten quite used to these short throw triggers, and these long throw triggers just don't quite do it for me. Now, the one fix would be to turn on the adaptive triggers, which do have the ability to add a little bit of a trigger stop for like your first person shooter games. However, I tend to pull a lot harder on the trigger, which pulls through that, so it does like the click anyway, and I just don't like that. So I want to address that. The other thing is I do not have the adjustable height thumbsticks that I'm used to. So playing with a short thumbstick is weird, and I'm really not used to it, and I don't want to get used to it. I feel that having a taller thumbstick on your aiming side does give you a competitive advantage, and I think it's important to be able to do that. Now, I have addressed both of these concerns with the B-Loader team, and I have mentioned, you might want to look at adding an adjustable thumbstick option, and I asked them very nicely to add little switches in here that give me adjustable trigger stops for my trigger buttons. So they are going back to the engineers, they're going to discuss it, and we will see. Maybe we will see a Besavior 2.0, similar to what SCUF does. SCUF has different versions of their controller, and you pick the features and functions you want. If you want the base controller, this is a very good controller. Like I said, it is very responsive. It's a PlayStation 5 controller, so there's nothing to be surprised about as far as how it works and how it functions. The buttons on the back are good. They seem durable. They are Omron branded clicky trigger buttons. The actual Besavior itself is running on Linux, which means that it's upgradable, so they can add more features in the future. There is a top secret feature, which I have also discussed with the Besavior team, that I hope they implement. I don't want to talk too much about it because I think it will be a game changer if they put it in. I'm going to keep working with them to try and get them to implement it, because I think they can, based on how they've implemented this control scheme. But let's talk about how I'm going to fix these problems. I have two products right here. So one is Control Freak Performance Thumbsticks. This is going to solve my problem with the low thumbsticks. We're going to install those right now. If you haven't seen these, they are available on Amazon. I've used them in other builds to show you kind of an easy way to fix your controller up. These just snap right onto the thumbsticks. So there's one installed, and there's two. I have now added adjustable height thumbsticks, which allows me to get all the control that I want. They're not cheap. I think they're about 25 Canadian dollars. But if you don't want to open your controller up, this is a great way to add those thumbsticks. The one thing I will say is that this actually makes them a little bit taller than the ones I'm even used to, which is gonna take a bit of getting used to now because it's even taller. But in theory, I should have even more control now. So that is one issue resolved. The other issue is gonna be solved by these. Now I haven't even looked at these. These I bought on Amazon. They're made by Play Vital. It comes with a gamer manual, which is gonna tell me how to use these things, but hopefully it's not that hard to figure out. And inside here, what we've got is some thumbsticks that have adjustable, let me see. Wow, that is quite the collection. So there's all these little thumbstick attachments, but they have built-in trigger stops, or they're supposed to anyway. Okay, so the trigger stop snaps in. Wow, this is like 2 full kits. I was worried about how expensive these stupid things are, but it is 2 full kits with adjustable trigger stops. So once I've added this trigger stop, holy, then these will attach to, there we go. They'll attach with sticky, double-sided stickies, which are on here. It comes with a number of sticky pads. So you just stick it inside here, and then this will stick onto the trigger. And then what it'll do is it just makes it so it only pulls a little bit, and it adds trigger stops to your controller. So we're gonna stick those on. I wasn't sure if I'd like these, but I think I will. Peel that off there, and then we'll stick this guy on there like that. Now, if you don't like how the buttons feel, how they're different, it does come with top buttons as well. I guess you gotta put the right one on the right side, just so that they hold them in the same position, like that. But I don't think that's gonna be a problem for me, so I'm gonna leave those alone, just so that I've added the bottom buttons. So that is it. This kit's been installed. I'm gonna stick all this back in here. Zip this up, and I have a whole nother kit, as long as I don't need a full trigger stop, for another controller. Now that makes this controller essentially the same as this controller. I have my short throw trigger, so you can see that one only moves that far now, and this one moves about the same. You can see I have my adjustable height thumbsticks, and I have 4 back buttons. So this controller just went from a pretty darn good controller to the replacement for my Extreme Rate controller. So this one is now going to be my daily driver controller until something happens. Now something special is happening, and I'm glad you've stayed this long because I do have some good news for you guys. The Besavior team also actually sell the Besavior attachment as a DIY mod kit. So for $59.99 US, you would get the entire back button kit. You would get the back shell, because it is a shell replacement for the back, as well as all of the internal components needed to turn any PlayStation 5 controller into a Besavior controller. Now, there is some bad news with that because it is not a solderless install. So it will require some soldering skills, but they are sending me right now 2 Besavior DIY kits. Now the reason why that's significant for me is because I still really like my actual real clicky triggers. A clicky trigger is not the same as a trigger stop, and the way you will find that out is in games where there is, like for Call of Duty, for example, where there are drivable vehicles, to go full throttle, you need to be able to pull this trigger all the way down to get max throttle. With a trigger stop, I can never get max throttle. Now I can go and try and adjust the controller configuration to see if moving it this far is the same as max throttle, and we will try that. But these are true no throttle to full throttle. So it's the same as if you pulled the trigger all the way to the end of its throw. So I prefer that. The second thing is these top cap replacements, they're kind of hokey. They're good if you don't want to open your controller, but as you can tell, I don't mind opening a controller. So I am going to make the ultimate Besavior 2.0 controller myself. I'm gonna do it myself with these kits. So you heard me say I have 2 kits. I will make 1 kit. I will do a full building a Besavior 2.0 walkthrough, which might be boring for some of you. Some of you might find it interesting, but I have a few surprises that I'm planning for that controller build, which will make it more like this with all the Besavior goodies, as well as a little twist that I'm working on for that controller as well. So that's gonna be coming up in future videos. Also, that will mean I actually own 3 Besavior controllers. Now, I personally only need 1 Besavior controller, so probably we'll be doing a Besavior controller giveaway in the new year. So I do need to keep this controller around for testing, and I do need to work with the Besavior team still to work on updates and all of that. So that's fine, I'm gonna keep this around for that, but when I get those 2 kits, I'll build one, we'll do a fun giveaway, and then we'll keep this one as a secondary giveaway at some point in the future. So a lot of really exciting updates coming up for kind of this channel, so you're gonna wanna stay tuned for that. Hopefully you got all the information you wanted about the Besavior controller. If you have questions about it, I do have a number of other videos where I've walked you through all of the settings, all of the configurations. I've hooked up other controllers. I've shown you exactly how to do it and what's available. So all that information is fully available on this channel already. Those videos are mostly already out, or they're coming out soon. You can get the Besavior controller directly from the Beloader team. I'll put a link in the description with a discount code which will get you a few bucks off of this controller. Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end of this video. We hope you enjoy the content in this video, and we'd love to have you come back. Consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And for those subscribers who are looking for that extra special thing that you can do to support this channel, consider joining our members group. That's where we're building this community, the Gears and Tech community, where we can all enjoy content together. You'll get special perks, which we'd love for you to check out by clicking the link down below. For those of you who are just happy to watch the video, that's okay too. You can check out some of our other content right over here, where we've got some previous videos that have already been uploaded and enjoyed by many of our viewers already. We do hope to see you again. This has been Gears and Tech. Have a great day.